And whenever we've got these social mediums on the hot seat, we want to call in our guy because we love Adam Rizzieri because he understands these things top to bottom. He's the Chief Marketing Officer for Agency Partner Interactive. And he joins us again here on 700 WLW. Adam, good afternoon. How are you on this glorious Saturday?
Ken, living the dream. It's Saturday. Just spending some time on air with you. It's a great day. It's a great day, man.
love having you on. This is blatant.
That up really well.
This is blatant censorship by Twitter and Facebook, is it not?
Come on, man. Isn't that what Biden would say? You're exactly right. That's exactly what's going on here. You know, can you imagine censoring the New York Post? This is one of the oldest newspapers in the United States. This thing was founded in 1801 by Alexander Hamilton. You know, better censor those guys. Yeah. It's unreal. And truly, you know, kind of I think what we've really seen from all of big tech, and this isn't just this year or this month, you know, because the election's coming up, but we've seen this kind of control of information in a very strong way over the past 4 years. And truly, they control what we see and what's trending, and really they control our attention. And they engage us using big data and analytics. They engage us with headlines that are most likely to capture us. And so when they do that, they then get the message in front of us that they want us to see. And ultimately, this isn't one of those messages.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
we're sitting here, you know, just weeks before the election. You know, I'm in Texas. I voted early on the first day that they opened up voting, and you know, this is one of those topics that I think obviously could sway an undecided voter one way or the other, because it is just, I think, so sensitive, and it is so. I got to say it, it's a little shady. I mean, we're talking about stopping emails from being released to the public that are exposing the reality of truly the son of a vice president at the time trading his father's position of power for special favors and a ton of money, at least $50,000 a month in his pocket, you know? So there's something there. And so, you know, it's been kind of interesting to see how our legislators have kind of viewed this and responded to it. And obviously, both sides, the left and the right, are going to say, you know, when it's opportune, oh, you know what, they're censoring a message that's going to us, or they're censoring messages that are in favor of our campaign or our positions. And you know, you'll hear that right now. Obviously, we're hearing that from the politicians on the right, specific to this particular topic, but this topic is not all that unique. I think the reality is we've seen big tech sort of pick and choose what messages they want to keep us from saying.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, exactly. And as a result, now we're actually just kind of like the big tech antitrust hearings back in the summertime, with respect to discussions of FCC Section 230. And FCC Section 230, really all that is just a part of the Communications Decency Act that limits liability from the internet platform. So really gives them kind of free reign on what they can do from an information blocking and sharing perspective without having to suffer the consequences of their decisions.
Well, there has to be something going on here, Adam. There has to be. Either people that run these companies are so blatantly liberal that they simply don't care, and they'll do anything to help Donald Trump get dismissed. Or, and this is the other thing that I think is a problem, they're either blatantly liberal or they're people that just think it doesn't matter. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get our guy elected because it will benefit us. Why would it benefit them if Joe Biden is president, knowing full well the House, controlled by the Democrats, want them in front of them talking about how they have been running completely out of control here for the last 2 or 3 years? What do they get with Biden that they don't get with Trump?
Absolutely. So, you know, it's kind of like being a sales guy at a company, and you're trying to score a huge contract with another company, but basically at the other company, you've got an inside person there. You've got a friend. You've got someone that's kind of on your team, even though they work for the other side, right? In this case, all right, you know what? Biden, I think he's going to play friendly with us. He's going to do the things that we need. So if we give him a bunch of money and we ensure that he's the one who is ultimately elected on Election Day, then we can probably expect to not have to be really subject to potentially a breakup, right? The big tech antitrust conversations were huge, and I know that there was consensus on both sides of the aisle at the legislative branch, but if you can control the executive in some way, that wields a lot of power and a lot of attention. So in my mind, it's kind of a power play. If we get the right guy in office, then we can control the narrative. We can control what the public's concerns are from an information perspective alone. And ultimately, we can ensure that our companies continue to grow and continue to become more powerful by the day.
So it's a more friendly voice that they think they'll have, or a less hostile environment that they think they'll have with Joe Biden. I must tell you, I'm mortally embarrassed by the profession that I worked in for 46 years from what I saw this week with Savannah Guthrie and also with Stephanopoulos on ABC, the way they handled them. Mortally embarrassed that somebody would actually pick someone like Steve Scully to moderate a debate when he was anti-Trump. Mortally embarrassed that Kristen Welker, an NBC News reporter, is going to moderate this last debate when she is from a family of heavy Democrat donors, spent Christmas at the White House with the Obamas, tipped off Hillary Clinton to post-debate questions. Mortally embarrassed by those people. They're not doing their job, simply not doing their job. But in the case of Twitter, which is where people can actually have a voice, I'm on the radio. You run a big company. But believe it or not, most people in this country don't run a big company, and they're not on the radio. They don't have a voice. Their voice is basically between them and maybe their families and maybe their friends. Twitter gives everybody a national platform to control whether or not you can have a voice about something, anything that isn't somehow, some way defamatory to an individual or somehow, some way isn't threatening to an individual. Those things aside, why couldn't someone participate in taking an article in a newspaper and send it out to his friends, family, anybody that wants to? They have censored the most common of the citizens in this country, the men and women, the hardworking men and women. This is what Twitter is doing. I don't understand why more people aren't upset about this.
It's absolutely shameful. But you know what? Just like it could be you, me, or my uncle or anybody on Twitter that's being censored, they're even censoring the President of the United States, not just campaign messages, but just his actual messages as well. I think you make a really good point when the truth and the facts are not being reported the right way, and when the facts, by the way, are not even facts anymore. Then what's going on? And at the end of the day, it's just really sad, and I think that there's a bigger concern here, and the concern really is just how free and fair is the coverage that we're seeing. If we're not able to get the right messaging in front of our nation, our public, that's a huge threat to democracy. That's a huge threat to our freedom. Ultimately, now we're seeing, I don't want to be like a conspiracy theorist or an alarmist here, but it's almost like a big tech, almost an organized effort to steal a campaign or steal an election. If the information that we're seeing isn't fair, coming from both sides, by the way, right, the right and the left, if we're not getting the true bulk of the story and there's not actual substance there, then that's a huge concern.
It is. And again, I don't understand why more people aren't interested in this story other than the New York Post and Fox. I don't understand why people aren't interested in whether or not what they operate with Twitter and with Facebook, can be used in so many different ways, not just for them, but against them. They've got your information. I've said that Twitter is not your friend. It really isn't. It's a
weapon. There's a reason for that, There's a reason for it.
Sure there is. It's a weapon. Twitter is a weapon. And you've got to be very careful in how you use it. Go ahead.
Well, it's a weapon, and you do have to be careful with how you use it. And I think that there is genuine concern for this topic, but the problem is they're controlling, just in terms of the fire spreading and the message being communicated from one person to the next, the control over it is just so strong that the people are not seeing the reality of what's taking place here. And social media truly has become this information exchange kind of platform and this huge way of controlling not just a conversation between friends and family, but really the narrative of a nation now, right? And so when you see the platforms coming together in a very coordinated way, noting that, there is always that human element of bias that's going to affect how a decision is made about censoring one article or another. You're never going to have a perfect sort of system in place that dictates what messaging should be allowed to spread and what messaging should be stifled in a very strong way. Yeah. So the reality is we have to, in a very, I would say, systemic way, see a big shift in how these platforms really monetize themselves. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it all comes down to money, right? And so you see a lot of these big platforms, Facebook and they're all, Google. It's all about who can get the most clicks and attract the most attention, and it's kind of a money play. So if we change the way these platforms exist and survive, and frankly how they compete, then that might change things a little bit. But it is going to require an act of Congress to ultimately change the dynamic and ensure that these things are actually being used as utilities not being used as weapons. That's
exactly right. Adam, I don't know what becomes of this. It could be a blue wave here in about 2.5 weeks, and the Democrats may control the House, the Senate, and the White House, in which case I don't think any of this gets better. I really don't. I think it gets worse. And for the voices that aren't in line with what they think, if the voices out there, and I speak of those of us that use Twitter and Facebook, if they're not in line as to what Facebook believes in, I think the American public is in for a rude awakening, because step out of line and your voice will not be heard. Right now, it's people that don't have an opinion in the media that doesn't align with Facebook or Twitter, or people in the administration whose voices don't align with Twitter or Facebook. But if they do it at that level, you damn well better believe they're going to do it at the level that we all are at that use these things. I'm not sure where it goes, if it stays blue or goes bluer than what it is. When you've got some sort of firewall there from the other side, maybe they're not as ready to flex their muscles. Tell me about Section 230. How can that be used to reel in Twitter and Facebook? Tell me, just explain that and what it can be used to do to reel in Twitter and Facebook.
Absolutely. If I go slash a tire because I'm upset about something, I will be responsible for that in a very strong and criminal way. In a nutshell, Section 230 is like a cloak of immunity. So, ultimately it was designed to sort of say, hey, you know what, these are social platforms that have a lot of, you would say, third parties, the users, right? A lot of people exchanging a lot of different types of information. I can't control what my crazy drunk uncle is going to say when he's on Facebook, but I can control what I say. Ultimately, what Section 230 says is, if my crazy drunk uncle posts a bunch of junk online, that's on him. It's not on Twitter or it's not on Facebook in terms of responsibility. Yeah. They're just the platforms, right?
Yeah, right.
So, Section 230 protects them from liability. The thing that we're seeing, though, is ultimately these platforms are deciding what to block and what to not block, and they're doing it with a lot of inconsistency. And so ultimately it's basically kind of recognizing that this particular protection is probably outlived its use. We probably need to find a way to now make sure that in terms of the content that's permissible and the content that's not permissible, that there's some sort of more effective or more established baseline, just to kind of give us some sort of measure of consistency. So actually the Congressman from Ohio, Mr. Jim Jordan, he and several others have proposed a series of different changes to Section 230. And actually there was a bill introduced just the other day. And really they're just trying to get some basic broad consensus on what the criteria should be in terms of content moderation practices. These content moderators, the censors, they use AI to pick up on keywords and just block stuff, but they also use humans to do manual reviews. How are these reviews conducted?
Exactly.
What are the checkpoints, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So we have to see that.
Adam Rizzieri, we got to go. Good stuff. Appreciate your time. Let's do this again, because you're on top of this, top to bottom. Thank you, Adam.
Absolutely, sir. And let's go vote, right? We got the election coming up. Let's be good Americans.
Right. That's right. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, sir.
Because if you vote, you may not get what you want, but if you don't vote, you surely will get what you deserve.
Exactly right.
All right. Thank you, Adam. 125 News Radio 700 WLW.